Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, this morning let's look at antidotes for corruption. That's a book that was presented yesterday. It's a collection of speeches and writings and motions and all those kind of things, penned by, well, is it penned, but put together by Senator Dino Melaye, and indeed the Senate President has written the foreword. Before the book becomes generally available and each of us can read it and take our own impression, largely you see that it sort of divides itself up, and this is very, this might concern some people. Well, actually, I put these papers down in front of me now. The fight is selective. The fight against corruption is selective, according to Senate President Saraki. We're fighting symptoms, not the actual ailment, according to the House Speaker. And the Presidential Advisory Committee Chair, Professor Sage, has said that the National Assembly is actually in the whole process of undermining the government. So those are the general broad principles. We'll no doubt we'll get down into the nitty-gritty when the books become more available. As it is, at the presentation yesterday, you read stuff like the hardcover was selling for 50,000 naira, and that Mr. Dogara has picked up a copy for each and every member of the National Assembly. Same thing with Senator Saraki. But let's look at this whole subject about, I guess, Mr. Abdulaziz Hassan is a communications and communicator and public affairs analyst. Thank you as always. It's been too long. It's just been a few weeks ago since we saw you. Good to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yori, and good morning, Nigeria.
Indeed. Malaki Ogumadu, National President, CDHR, and a legal practitioner. Thank you very much for coming on as well.
My pleasure, as always. Good morning, viewers.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you probably haven't gotten your hands on an actual copy, but as I said, the broad planks of it is that the Senate President feels, the Senate President who is of the APC, and the ruling party is the APC, the Senate President feels that the fight against corruption is selective. When I saw some of the write-ups, it was about anti-corruption agencies feel they have to justify the reason for being in existence, and so they really go overboard looking for sensational answers and that kind of a thing. And as I said, even the Speaker of the House of Representatives have said we've got it wrong. We're actually fighting the symptoms. What do you think of the whole effort?
What we are hearing from the two of them is an inroad into what the book contains, because the foreword was made by the Senate President, supported by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dogara. And I begin to wonder whether we are in the same shoes with these two gentlemen as far as APC and the majority of Nigerians are concerned, in fighting corruption and in charting a good cause for Nigerians and in delivering services to Nigerians. In the sense that the way we look at it is that it's much more, they are personalizing the fight against corruption against Mr. President General Muhammadu Buhari and the Vice President Chief Yemi Osinbajo.
Well, Mr.
Professor.
Professor Yemi Osinbajo, son.
Yes.
Thank you for the correction. And when you look at it, they have been saying it all this while, even before them. A lot of people are saying it is selective. And these selective paradigms always come from the people that are the subject matter as far as the corruption is concerned. Saraki came out, the president of the Senate, with due respect, he came out yesterday to say that the fight against corruption need to be insulated from political interference, without minding the fact that he is also a political figure on his own. So is there any way you can differentiate between, you can run away from your shadow That's one thing.
Okay, you know, I know there's a lot more. Let me hear from Malaki as well. How this grabbed you when you first heard one about this book, and now you were there. Oh, by the way, I think Aliko Dangote bought one for 10 million naira, but just to show the sort of reception. Give me your impressions on the launch of this book, its subject matter, and the way it is being built.
I thank Alaji for the premise already laid. I have three major concerns. One is the timing. Second is what seems to be lack of cohesion and coordination within the ruling political party. And of course, the third is the qualification of the authors and presenters of this book.
Okay.
Now, if
the qualification for, since the book is called Antidotes for Corruption.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if the book is presented just as recent as yesterday, it presupposes that none of us probably have read. You could have seen, but you probably have not read the entire detail. I like to be charitable to, he says we are friends, Mr. Dino Melai. But I like to be charitable to him in saying that perhaps there are other aspects of the book that also appreciates what is clearly before us as a nation. Otherwise, it will be a total disservice to the country. It will be a distortion of facts. Now, on the issue of timing, perhaps the time was already fixed before Mr. President left this country. That is not to say that we don't have an acting president. But I think it is instructive to note that the timing is also important for them to rub in the message that they have always continually allowed the Nigerian people to believe. How does that work? It shows clearly...
When you say allow, I think that they would want the Nigerian public to believe.
And you know, when you carry a lock too far, you also begin to feel invincible. You also begin to think that you are right in your own thinking. And that's why I use that expression. However, I take the hint. Now, that leads me to the cohesion and the coordination of the ruling political party. I have made this point that there don't seem to be effective management of the affairs of the party. And we've seen it, I mean, play out on so many fronts. At a point, it almost completely collapsed the legislature, which is a major, most sensitive arm of government, where the president came out clearly to say that he can work with any person and that he wasn't interested in who emerges as the Senate president or the speaker. The implication of that is that we now have, and we are harvesting, serious implosion in the party, one in which the greatest opponents of APC are APC members occupying sensitive strategic positions all across board. Now, a party that has no way of enforcing party supremacy and allowing the party as an engine room from where these policies are conceived, analyzed, synthesized, and churned out in terms of, programs of action, will, in a question of time, begin to suffer the kind of problems that they are having at the moment. And therefore, I think that the Nigerian people will be worried as to what manner of party do we have.
Yeah, exactly.
In which strategic, members of the same party occupying sensitive political positions will be the greatest, opponents of the policy of that. Now, as to...
I was going to say that I'll come back to you because you brought up something that I want, Abdulaziz to sort of look at. And this is the fact that the way APC is carrying on, things that he said, the way APC is going on with its organization, internal organization, it's effectively dispensed with the need for opposition. Within its own self, it has an opposition, ready-made in the National Assembly, depending on how you look at it, through the principal actors that we've spoken about, have effectively become an opposition of the party, where they themselves are trivializing, poo-pooing the efforts of the administration on this all-important plank, that brought them to office. Now you're messing with all of that. It really, I want you to react to that aspect of it and what it portends for the future. But let me go on this break so that I don't have to interrupt you. And then stay tuned, please. We'll include your calls. Welcome back. We're looking at Antidotes for Corruption, which we understand is a book that's been put together by Senator Dino Melaye at an event yesterday. You know, it was very well represented, you know, and by the way, let's just hear what the principal characters said: the Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the gatherer of the materials, Senator Dino Melaye himself.
We know we have before us a number of bills that we believe also strengthen the fight. One, the Whistleblower Protection Bill, which was also the drama today. In the confusion of so many whistles, at the end of the day, nothing was achieved. We hope that when this is backed by legislation, we will have a greater value, and it is our hope that we can pass it before July of this year.
When those who celebrate the successes of the fight against corruption in terms of high-profile arrest, high-profile investigation, high-profile prosecution, and even detention, they are missing the point, because that is dealing with the symptoms of corruption. If we must make progress, our focus should be to replace the old order that was corrupt with a new order that makes corruption near impossible to take place.
Very high positive resultant effects from the public. My motion on TSA got over 7 billion recovered to government treasury. And I've also brought bills, and I can tell you that 90% of my bills and motions all border on issues of corruption, because corruption is the bane of our development. And once we get corruption right, then development will definitely naturally come.
Okay, so that's like an excerpt there. And so to now return to the question, because clearly it is felt that this book is going to have its usefulness to society. But if you now look at the whole matter about the APC, when you look at it, it looks like it's become such a self-contained party. It is at once the ruling party and opposition, all within itself.
Mr. Yori, let me make one thing very clear to you and the viewers. Whenever one writes or he speaks, the person concerned, the prolific writer or a speaker, he or she is expressing his attitudinal hierarchy. You see, what we are seeing now in the book is that these people are expressing themselves. And the issue of usefulness of the book to Nigerians, I beg to disagree, unless, because when you are having audiences, some are bound to dance to the tune of people that are myopic, and some are bound to dance to the tune of people that are objective. It will continue. The fight against corruption will continue to be selective, whether we like it or not. It's a natural law, because you can't arrest everybody. And why these people are crime foul now is because the ball is in their courts. It's a very clear thing. You don't need anybody to tell you. And when somebody is telling you that we should concentrate more on deterrent than punishment, then there's a need for us to begin to go back to our dictionaries and encyclopedias. Because what is deterrent? What is deterrent? Deterrent is what will stop you. And what is that thing that will stop you? It's the punishment. We are afraid, even in spiritualism, we dance to our spiritualism because of the benefits and the punishment involved. If you are good, you go to heaven. If you are bad, you go to hell. So the punishment is there, the enjoyment is there for everybody. And when somebody is talking, the Honorable Dogara said we should strengthen our institutions. I can see our elites. dancing again and again to the tune of Obama, the former president of America, when he came to Ghana, that we need strong institutions than strong men. Then I began to wonder, who gave birth to strong institutions? Egg or the hen? You understand?
Which came first?
Which came first? Because the issue is this. I can see our elites as, very sorry to say, some of them are wonderful, and people with lazy thoughts. Thought in the sense that you see them as choir members in churches, in the sense that, say it after me. You understand? Immediately somebody say it, they begin to amplify it without sitting down to dissect and see how they can take something out of it or criticize it or dump it.
So, but that aspect about APC managing to have a position within itself, that's a pretty unique situation. And Malaki had alluded to the fact that if they're not careful, the center won't be able to hold in the APC.
You know, we are used to that. Even in our literature book by Chino Achebe, they said things fall apart when the center could no longer hold. But one thing is very clear here. Let us look at the history of APC. You can see the coming together of APC is much more like an emergency coming together.
Okay, I hear you, and I understand. Most Nigerians will understand that. That is part of the reason why we're in this situation. Let me not use the word mess. Let me say in this situation, because you now have, and that's what's going to be. Professor Sage has said it, that the National Assembly is actually, whether it wanted to or not, it is undermining government's efforts. And I don't know how popular they feel. Not that authors generally are looking for popularity when they write books, but I don't know how popular they feel Mr. Melaye feels that this book will make him feel. Because we heard him, and it's really, it's flowing against the tide of everything that's out there. And it reminds me of another book, that one by President, against the run of play. So what's all this against? And people, I'm not necessarily linking it directly, but people have said that you fight corruption, it'll fight back. Nobody has been convicted of corruption yet, but as he said, the ball clearly is in their court for them to explain themselves.
You know, we're all stakeholders in this whole convoluted evolution and processes. That excuse that it was an emergency conglomeration of strange bedfellows. Well, we must also locate the time to exit that. Otherwise, it will begin to operate as a self-defeatist narrative of where we find ourselves. In France, a young man, Emmanuel Macron, has just emerged as the president of the French Republic.
They said the youngest since 18-something.
39 years old. Now, he does not belong in the true sense of it, in the traditional political parties.
He doesn't have a party yet, if you remember.
He evolved, so to speak, barely 6-7 months ago, and galvanized the resentment of the French people, tapped into the possibilities of the French people, aggregated the potentials in terms of political capital of the French people, and then took victory, I mean, you know, convincingly. What that shows is that there's nothing strange about what APC did in the Nigerian political context. As a matter of fact, those who made it happen should be credited for it. As a nation, our responsibility is to build on that and then forge ahead with what we have identified are the solutions. Now that brings me to the topic at hand. To a very large extent, it is not so much about that book. For me, it comes across as a legislative statement, because Dino Melari, in all fairness, has managed to dominate albeit controversially, the major political activities, even when he was in the House of Representatives. You remember the 80 Gate, you remember the numerous fights, you remember his outspokenness on issues of corruption. And like he said, the TSA motion, the MTN whatever and all that. But let us juxtapose all of those with the length of time it took this particular National Assembly to deal with the requisition of the Nigerian people for a Freedom of Information Act. Now, that act alone empowers the Nigerian people, no less the institutions of government, to fight corruption. Now, if you take another bill that is still pending, and for which reason we are wondering why they don't move with equal speed, and that is the Proceeds of Crime Bill. It is that bill that will enable the legislature strengthen the institutions that fight corruption to tackle this menace. I hope that this book does not just come long on issues of what is not done right. I hope they also have sufficient solution indices and practical, workable action or plan that will, because at the end of the day,
because they call it the antidote of corruption. So it is like they're giving us answers.
But from the reports we are getting,
yeah, I know it's a bit difficult to fathom. Let me quickly
from the state. Okay,
I got to go on a break. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Against the backdrop of the presentation of a book by Dino Melaye, The Antidote for Corruption, we're looking at it. And we're also reminded that General Bamai also wrote a book that the public, in their own way, engaged with. The jury probably is still out on former President Ebele Jonathan's book Against the Run of Play. And now we have Antidotes of Corruption. So all these books are coming out. Clearly, from the perspective of those who authored them, or in the case of Dino Melaye's book, not so much author as gathered together materials, they're trying to put a certain perception out there, perhaps that Nigerians have not really considered fully from their point of view, and so they need to put this in cold print and put it in a capsule so it's there for posterity, right? That's what books do. That's why authors write books. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's true.
And maybe, it's often been said that Mr. President made a mistake when he said back in the day that I can work with anybody. I don't know if, well, now this is payback.
I've said it earlier. In one of the programs, about 4 or 5 months ago or 6, when I said, despite the fact that we identify with Mr. President and we believe in him, can you work with the devil? The answer is emphatic no. By nature of his person, we knew General Muhammadu Buhari cannot work with the devil. And now what we are seeing a replica of it, in the sense that at the National Assembly...
Although we're not saying anybody is a devil.
Nobody is a devil.
It's just a figure of speech. It's a metaphor. I just thought we should emphasize, for the avoidance of doubt, that we're being metaphorical.
You know what? We are seeing a replica. A replica of it playing out in all the facets of governance. In the sense that when a national legislator is coming out with his book, and some people that are making their forward notes on it are saying that they don't believe what they are saying in a nutshell is that they don't believe in the modus operandi of the fighting corruption. You understand? And they are now telling you that the institution should be strengthened. How do you take a strong leader from the institution? That's one thing. Because we knew what happened during with due respect, the regime or the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. People look at him as a weak president, and they did whatsoever they like.
Well, so, his wife was at the event yesterday.
Yes, she was there. She was there also. You see, people are coming out. You see, it's a normal thing for people to come out to try to clear their names. It's left for us to see between the lines and to know where these people are going to. Because people can feed people with objective information. The same people can feed people with biased information. It's left for you, the reader.
Exactly. But let me bring it to Malaki here, because Malaki, being a man of the law, I suppose we've often heard from lawyers that evidence is paramount. Whatever you want to say, opinion, whatever, that will be taken in the context of what it is, but evidence. Now, the way all of this is going, the Nigerian people feel that they have evidence to know that all is not well. And here are these writings coming up, starting from General Bamai's book to President Jonathan's book to now to this one, saying that, look, take the evidence that you think you have and then hear this perspective on it. So the public is going to have to do pretty much what judges do, which is look at this whole matter and try and understand what is really going on here, right?
Well, what you must not also discountenance is that there's already a consensus within the same public you talk about that corruption actually is fighting back. And that is not a lazy response to what they know. It is essentially because we knew where we were coming from. We are also witnessing and seeing evidence of how, for instance, monies are buried everywhere, including burial grounds, farmlands, homes, homes in disuse.
Yes, salted away in villages.
And suddenly, there is a measured effort, not just to recover, but to bring those who are perpetrating all of this to book. But for what happened, Boko Haram, for instance, would have invaded up to the south by now. And that was going to be possible because the funds allocated to engage that insurgent group was stolen. And that is to put it mildly. And therefore, with this legislative proclamation, that's the way I see it, in a program where you have a principal actor writing a book, and I like to hear what the reviewer have said, because a reviewer is not just about endorsement. A reviewer can critique a book, which is why I am interested in knowing how much solutions, how much of their own legislative action that could lead to effective fight against corruption was contained in that book.
Indeed. And perhaps, Malaki, the other thing that I'm curious about is that who exactly is the target of this book? Usually, people who are going to write or communicate usually have to get this very, very clear in their mind. Who's my target audience?
You might not know.
Who is the target audience for this book?
We can at best hazard a guess. You might not know precisely.
Is it a manual for government?
And that for us will be a serious worry. A legislator that have enough time to put such a book that I understand is sold for that exorbitant price.
Yes, 600 pages.
Yes, should have a concrete blueprint, condensed in a legislative form that can deal with the peculiarities of the crisis he's trying to explain out in such a way that he is better empowered to lend credence, because what we have not seen is a corresponding endorsement or effort on these people who are saying the fight is not working. I mean, the battle is not making any progress. Let us also see what they are doing in their own corner to add value, to aid the effort. Okay. Because I finally
so Mr. Faisal has been waiting for a while, but hold the thought. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Good morning, Faisal.
Oh, too bad.
In spite of that, I'm so sorry. See if you can call back in, Mr. Faisal.
I had had cause to challenge a colleague of mine who is supposed to be with us, and goes about saying that he has always succeeded in defeating cases brought to court by EFCC. Yes, there are challenges in the prosecution efforts of the EFCC, but that does not mean they are not doing anything, because on record we have seen convictions. But I asked him the question: to what extent?
Okay, Mr. Faisal is
very
back.
well.
Good morning, Mr. Faisal.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Dino Milaye, what the subsidiary is doing is to mock the fight against corruption. You get it? And if you look at the gathering, with the people he brings together, it's just to mock the fight against this corruption. And secondly, you even prove it to us that they are not the only ones that are corrupt. That the market woman is also corrupt. The mechanic they are corrupt. So it's just a way of trying to tell the government that, well, if you are fighting corruption, also look at the market people too. That way, it's able to bring together all those people that launched the book, like the Patient Good Luck and others.
Okay.
Well, go away from Nigeria, no problem.
All right then. Thank you very much, Faisal. That's one perspective from one potential consumer of the book. That you know what this is doing is mocking the fight against corruption, and this mockery is coming from within APC.
We cannot accept that, because the issue of corruption is an existential problem. It has the capacity not just to demobilize us, but to put an end to this country, Nigeria.
Indeed. Let me, ask them, what do you think, Abdulaziz? The viewers comment that, in one bullet point, this is mocking the fight against corruption. That's one perspective.
Mr. Faisal made a profounding statement that I noted now. He said, look at the conglomerate of the people.
Look at the people at the event.
You understand?
Just look at the people at the event.
The people at the event are the people that have one question or two to answer by the EFCC.
Indeed. Let me bring in Mr. George so that we, let me also hear. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling in, sir.
Good morning to Malaki and Alaji Hassan.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, Mr. George.
Uncle Yori, these guys, they will not cease to amuse serious thinking people. When people like this gather and begin to profile solutions, it makes one to laugh. On the one hand, you are working assiduously to truncate the war against corruption by refusing to pass laws that have been pending with you for close to a year, and doing everything to truncate it. And you are undergoing trials. All those people that are sitting there yesterday, which of them has no case in court or with EFCC? And these are the same people coming to tell you that the corruption, what they were doing yesterday on Koyori, is simply crying wolf. For me, it's an indication that the war against corruption is biting hard. If they were not feeling it, they won't come out and say, oh, we are not feeling it, we are not feeling it. Somebody who is not feeling the pinch will not shout. You shout only when you are feeling the pinch of the effect of
So that's one way to look at it.
So yesterday, if I were the government, I would intensify the fight against corruption. EFCC is doing much. Those who want to see the effect, they can see it. These people will never see it because they are the...
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Those who want to see it will see it. And conversely, those who don't want to see anything good about what the EFCC is doing, indeed, that's going to be what they shall be seeing. Nothing. Right? Please continue now. I have to interrupt you.
About the people that would like to see or not to see. Mr. George took me back to the classroom on a topic that talks about selective exposure, perception, and retention. We tend to expose ourselves to information that applies to our biases. We tend to remember the information that favors us.
Yeah.
And we tend to perceive information, to manipulate it, to suit our personal biases. You see, they came up with a book. Some people, I know not all, few people will dance to their tune because that is their own way. There's no way, there's nothing anybody can do about that. And millions of people can expose themselves to information materials, but the way they will perceive it is different. And there's what they call mechanistic theories or bullet theory in communication.
Okay, I've got to go on another break. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back for the home stretch. Welcome back. We're looking at Dino Melaye's collection, aggregation of speeches, motions, and whatnot, which is called the Anti-Corruption. Mr. Usman Enekoyi, thank you for holding on. Go ahead this morning, sir.
Yes, okay, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to your wonderful guest.
Good morning, sir, Mr. Usman.
Yes, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go on.
Yes, I want to align myself 100% with what the last caller, Mr. George, said. And to add more to what he said, you know what happened yesterday is nothing but corruption fighting back. That is exactly what happened yesterday. Now, look at this. It makes mockery of the country, not mockery against the fight against corruption, but mockery of the image of this country. Now, if you look at the caliber of people that are there, are people that are facing serious corruption charges. You see somebody like Patient Jonathan there. You see somebody like Saraki there. So you can imagine what we are in this country. Fight against corruption, as long as it is not go the way they want it to go, then it's not a fight against corruption. I can tell you that the fight against corruption is doing very hard. They are feeling the heat, and it's in cost. There is no selection. There is no. It has not be selective. And if you look at it, look at for instance, take example of the Senate president. Almost all the major corruption allegations, his name featured. Society General Bank, he is there. As a governor, a lot of corruption allegations against him. Panama Papers, he is there. Paris Reform Club, his name is featured. Custom document, his name featured. Where on earth do you expect such a person to now come today and say that, yes, the fight against corruption is not one way?
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Usman. Well, it's difficult to escape from the conclusions that are being sort of approached by gentlemen such as Mr. Usman, that corruption is fighting back. But you see, we can't say corruption is fighting back in the sense that nobody has convicted yet all those that are there. So they're still, in the middle of their cases. Let's just put it like that.
The convictions are being recorded.
They are being recorded.
We have serious, convictions on record are being recorded, including a former governor.
But what these gentlemen are doing, especially those people that were there, they seem to be saying with the book that, look, we are being hounded here. People are being unfair to us here. The security agents, anti-corruption agencies like EFCC, it's so concerned with justifying its existence that it is just at the drop of a hat going over everybody so that the whole people will clap and be sensational about it. That's what they're saying.
But why that is not completely flying? Why that is not succeeding in the way it's intended is because Nigerian people also got to a point where they became conscious of what is going on and what would be the repercussion, even before the battle started. And so it's a simple slogan to say, look at it. This is what is going on. These are the principal actors. These are the people involved. And this is how they are reacting. Yeah. For which reason, I'm interested in that book because
one needs to get hold of a copy.
Need to engage them.
Mr. Adodo in Obalende is waiting to join the conversation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Adodo.
How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you. Please go ahead. Go ahead now, sir.
I just want to contribute to your views.
This is this morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, sir. Please go ahead.
What happened yesterday was a demonstration of laziness on the part of our senators. They have been very less busy. So for you to write such a voluminous book has shown that you have been doing nothing. Either thinking of it by yourself alone. But you see the caliber of people that gathered here yesterday, they all have questions to answer. And that is why they know themselves. So they are making mockery of the whole system, telling us that there's nothing we can do. This is very shameful. That book might not sell. That is the truth. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. People are dropping money for it.
While I agree with his sentiment,
yes.
If it doesn't smell, it doesn't sell. Since you have enough scandal in that book, it will probably sell. But I make the point that, look, that book will be of no utility coming from a high-ranking senator surrounded by the leadership of the National Assembly if we don't hear and read about the solutions. Good that it has been captioned antidotes for corruption, but I have always known that the rope does not make the monk. Finally, because you are perpetually disturbed by calls.
In fact, right now, Mazi Okorafor has called in. Mazi Okorafor has called in from Abia.
At a time when the National Assembly has increased its own budget, we want to see what their allocation to the law enforcement agencies, including EFCC, is.
Arrest my case. Mazi Okorafor, good morning, sir.
An antidote for corruption.
Yes.
Now, what we are doing now in Nigeria, we are just advertising the word corruption. Because the antidotes, I've never seen any antidotes. Although we call those things in the management department or economics department. I will advise the people concerned all these groups that we have been launching from January or this is from last year. Let them donate these groups to our schools so that our children who are needing a civic education, they will read and know more about corruption. Because it will help us. Because at the end of the day, if we don't fight this corruption right from the grassroots, we are just wasting our time. Agreed that the corruption has come to stay, but the only thing that we can only fight it to reduce it. But if I'm telling you, after saying to Nigeria, if you feel that you can eradicate corruption into Nigeria, it's very, very difficult because the issue is that people there fighting there are they ready for it? And we that are just from there, the voters, are they ready to help us eradicate? We cannot because we pray to God to help us because the way we are seeing Nigeria now, everything is dancing corruption. Thank you very much. Send those people to our schools. Thank you very much.
Indeed, Mazi, thank you very much. I'm sorry, well, I shouldn't really be sorry that I have to keep interrupting you because it's the nature of the program. The panel extends all the way back to home.
We're also getting used to it.
I hear you, but you know how it is.
Very well.
You know, it's a demand.
So I had made the point, and I hope it wasn't overshadowed by that intent. Namely, that we are in recession at the moment. There are some economic experts who are already projecting that we are almost out of it or getting out of it. However, the 2017 budget, which has just been passed, yet to be assented to, clearly has a remarkable increase in the budgetary allocation to the National Assembly. We want to see, by the same team who are saying that there is no fight against corruption, we want to see a corresponding increase in the budgetary allocation to the law enforcement agencies clearly saddled with the responsibility to fight corruption, including EFCC.
Indeed. So really, since we've almost run out of time, it'll be astounding to observers, not just within the country, but also around the world. Thank God people can see from around the world now, that's the internet being what it is, to hear that from within the ruling party itself, its own principal, very, very senior politicians are saying that the war against corruption is without sincerity, and that it's really out to get a few folks, implying as much as that. So only God knows how people are going to be feeling about Nigeria.
Barrister Malaki made one statement that we need to look into.
Let me just get Adeola Pangrove from Pangrove into the mix, and then I'll come straight back to you. Yes, good morning, Mr. Adeola.
Good morning. This is Adeola from Pangrove. Mr. York and the
discussants.
I want to see there's something that I'm seeing here. Most of those people, it's that the house has been hijacked from the PDP. They have already hijacked the system from the APC. They should watch out. They must be careful. There's one adage in Yoruba that said, that if this mistake has been made right from the beginning, the APC should not go asleep. The house has been hijacked from APC. That is what I'm seeing in this case.
All right, then.
To be very, very careful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeola. Okay, maybe you want to I don't know if you care to factor in that perspective, that the National Assembly has been hijacked from the APC.
Yes, it can be, yes. It has been hijacked in one way or the other, in the sense that when you look at the coming together of APC, a lot of people that came in, they came in like warlords,
Okay.
having control of their respective states. So coming to the pool to put something there, and they look at themselves as being bigger than the party. A lot of the former governors, PDP former governors that came to APC, they came with their states as their own stake to the party, and they don't look at the hierarchy of the party as something that should be respected. That is why we are having problem now, but God will help us out.
Indeed, thank you very much. Malaki, you got a 10-seconder?
As your pleases. Now, I make the point. I make the point that much as I have personally discredited this book for what it represents, it's also important as we interrogate all of these issues that the respective agencies concerned should also look inward for improvement, not because nothing is happening. I don't agree with that.
Thank you very much, Malaki Ogumadu, National President of CDHR, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, and legal practitioner. And thank you also, Abdulaziz Hassan, communicator and public affairs analyst. You can see a repeat of this program at midnight on TVC Entertainment, and also tomorrow morning between 6 and 7 on DSTV and GoTV, after which the fresh edition will come on, God willing, at 10:30 later on tomorrow morning. I'm Yori Fulani. Bye-bye for now.